And this is an effort to bring the technology, right? That's going on in Brazil, or in the United States, or anyone who's interested, like in the technology, also open out just for those. So, and this is like kind of one first meeting that we're doing of multiple ones we're planning to kind of bring that connection and help like the Brazilian community, the US community understand AI and how they can use that in the best way, either career-wise, their business, or even open a new business for themselves. Yeah, and with that, I bring to our moderator, Mateus. He's going to give an introduction.
And I'm feeling humbled and honored to be here, speaking about this very important topic of innovation with AI. You cannot open LinkedIn without seeing 3 posts about AI, so this is a very important topic for us to start today. Is AI going to take my jobs or no? What do you think? Let's start with Diva.
Hi everyone. I don't think so AI is going to take a job, but I do believe people who know AI will take the job. So if you don't know AI, you would be left behind. I think of it as like, let's take an example of an accountant. Accountant as an expertise still exists and existed before Excel was there. But people who knew Excel took the jobs of people who don't know Excel. And I think AI would be a similar kind of thing that would exist. In the future, people who know AI would end up taking the jobs of people who don't.
Classic. Who wants to go next? Yeah, please, Manish.
I think this is an interesting topic. I've heard a lot of people saying what would happen in the next 6 months down the line, or what would happen next 1 year down the line. The way I see it is like, there are 2 sides of the coin, right? One is the people who are using the AI, the one who doesn't or don't want to use the AI. So I think the other side of the people have to be scared of, because the other side will come and take their jobs. That's what I see. But on a point of different domains in the industry right now, I think all the serious stuff is getting done very easy. I mean, if you want to summarize some content, you can do it quickly. If you want to write an email, an AI can write and give it to you. But all the boring stuff, let's say digital marketing or hiring, or all these service jobs, these are very boring, because a lot of people are, lot of masses will come and do this job for you. That is where the AI is going to replace, and those people are the ones, if they don't use AI, they are going to get replaced by AI.
About the educational part of it, how to onboard more professionals to AI if this is the future, right? Vinicius, once you take this question, what kind of educations we can find out there, or how is the landscape looking like for newcomers?
So, and that's something they don't talk about on the field, right? AI is telling us to replace it, but they hide it about the domain expertise, right? AI requires domain expertise, either to train the data or to answer the question, right? The more you know about it, the better you can ask questions and take the answer from it. And you can be the senior engineer or staff, you still get better results, right? Because you know the problem and you can come to the solution. Like if you're laid off or in a company you're fearful to it, you should look at what are the problems that I currently have and what I can solve them with AI. That's what makes you stand out, rather than fearful like, oh, it's going to replace it, it's too late, right? It's not late, because the domain expertise matters, right? There's not a lot spoken on the field, but it matters, right? I work with many companies, right, AWS, and big techs or small banks, right? And the domain expertise is hard to find, right? When I was training the model for AWS, it was very hard to find people who could create data to be able to train the model. And also people to train the model, right? There's benchmarks out there to do it, but they're very small, right? There's many benchmarks that doesn't exist. Like auditing compliance, there's only 2 in the whole world that I know of that's open source. So if you work in law firms and stuff, you can create a benchmark to that just with your own knowledge and your own questions. And you see if it answers well. When it doesn't, you're already benchmarking. Something that even big techs are not doing it. And that's money. That makes you stand out, right? So the key here, it's not late. Vibe code is making it easier. You don't even need the coding. Before you didn't have that. That was harder to get into. But now with Vibe code, it's even easier to get into, even though you don't know coding. But you always have to focus on your domain expertise and see the problems that you have in your own firm or business, and then try to use AI for that, asking questions to the AI. I help to train some LLM models, right? And I can give an example, right? Very simple, right? We have teams in India creating data and teams in the US creating data. The teams on India has a more British accent data, and if you train the model on that, it starts learning that, or unbalanced. And the model was supposed to be built to use the American English. So every data that we get from the Indians, we have to make a couple of changes to check if it was British or American English, to make sure the model is trained that way. Another thing is that it's not even language, right? In India, one example is they love Messi more than Ronaldo, so it's very unbalanced and skewed to that. And if you're getting samples to that, right, you're training the model to be more biased towards Messi than the other. So that takes place worldwide, right? And that's why data is important from every corner, right? And that's why most of the big tech is going everywhere to get the data, right?
The lingua franca is English, but the common language is English. It's not German or all the communication or all of the AI developments around the world, was my question, is in English. True or false?
Mostly is in English, correct. But there is a rush to build their own because there is gap of this data, right? You can have even like like in Brazil, for example, there is a Brazilian just focused in Portuguese, and if you train on that database, it usually outperforms the big models because the models is getting almost all the data, but they lack the specific data, right? And abroad, doing that, you improve the model even better to understand locally, right? In Brazil, sausage they can call vina in Curitiba, which is a specific word. It will not answer that if you ask ChatGPT, but when you train in Maritaca, this data from specific countries, you'll be able to do so. So it's kind of, they call localization, which is building an AI that fits the best each local and their understanding of language and how they behave.
No, coming from a higher ed background, I beg to differ. Jobs are not going to be lost. They'll be modified because expertise, knowledge of a field will never go away. So the data is as good as the input of data, and the input is as good as the expert that is doing this. So if you talk to any colleague of yours in the medical field, for instance, oh yes, radiology, I mean, they're like reading thousands of films, but if the radiologist does not know the field, mistakes will be made by AI because all the data contains the right and the wrong. And so the human being, I think, that we are I'm from Columbia University, the human being that we are educating, the student that we are educating, has to think, analyze, and have substance in that knowledge. So just using, so it's kind of a tool, very advanced, that not, but it will not, it's interesting in your field, like 5 engineers or junior engineers were let go. But because your model is very good. If it were not, and there was nobody there supervising the results, they would still be there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think
Thank you.
that's the reason why I really do believe that software engineering is not going to go anywhere anytime soon. But jobs are changing, the requirements are changing. Who's going to be there to supervise all the code produced by the models? And the models actually are trained by previously written code by previous engineers. And now it's based on that to produce the future code. But who's there to improve the code, right? It can't just get smarter by itself. So that's where human comes in the picture and say, hey, let's change the algorithm a little bit. I know that algorithm was invented 10 years ago, but things change. I've come up with something new, and that's where you tell the model, say, hey, this is a better way to do it. And I think that's how things will just keep evolving. Yeah.
Thank you. This is very interesting. My name is Mark Kaufman. I'm a lawyer with Potomac Law Group in Washington, D.C. And in my humble opinion, AI is going to replace a lot of jobs, and reasonably quickly. And we don't have to, I'm not here to argue with you about that, but for purposes of my question, maybe assume I'm right for a moment. It seems to me that we may have the problem where a lot of the content, if not the majority of the content on the internet that will be created over the next several years will be created by large language models, who then train upon that same content that they created, that the large language models created. At some point, the models are training all on their own content. And I wonder if, and I've heard that called like model crash or something like that. And it seems to me like that could be a big problem. What do you think?
So I'll take the like your question on what will AI replace jobs or not, maybe based on that. Since you are a lawyer, so when you work in a law firm, there are different kind of people, right? So some you hire junior people who are just drafting, and then there is a leader who's kind of just checking out the law papers, and then there would be someone who would actually be presenting. So the law expertise would become more powerful. So now that drafting doesn't need, there's no need for drafting. AI can draft it, but like the person who would be checking would become more important, has what AI drafted.
That's precisely what I do now.
Yeah.
But now there's at least one associate lawyer who's not learning how to draft patent applications
Yes.
because I don't need them.
Yes, and that is the jobs that would get replaced. So if somebody, now the lawyer expertise who can actually kind of figure out like the fine drafting and where AI can make mistakes, that person would do.
Sure.
And was there another question?
Well, about the models feeding upon their own content,
Yes.
whether that causes any problems.
So the problem which it would create is that the mistakes that model create, which is called hallucinations, would become so fine-tuned that it would be very difficult to kind of spot them. So that is one of the main problems. As AI gets better and better, we would start trusting it more, and the hallucinations would become so fine-tuned and ingrained in the models that it would be very difficult to kind of figure out where it has made a mistake. In my opinion, that is the main problem that is going to.
So on the aspect of the data, I guess the data that we see right now is majorly text. If you scrape all the internet, most of the also is from different parts of the modalities, but most of it is from text. But I see that if you can scrape entire YouTube, you can get billions of trillions of data. So I see the data bubble growing up. Some or the other way it will burst, and that's where I think at that point of time, as we mentioned hallucination, that problem will be solved. So I think that is the major bottleneck for any LLM right now. So I think data will solve that.
Right, and it goes to you, to answer to, right? It's called prompt engineering, right? It's which in simple word is a better way to ask questions to the LLM, right? But the key is you don't really know the knowledge of the LLM, right? Because you didn't train it, right? And you be able to understand if it answered. So you do a first question. If you didn't get the answer, that means you have to improve your question to be able to answer, right? One way is to do it. There are many techniques, right? But one simple one is telling, like, you tell a role, like if you're asking about a nurse, right? A question with a nurse, you tell like, oh, you are a general nurse in a hospital, and you tell the environment, and then you ask the question, right? The chances are higher that you will be able to answer. Because now you narrow down the knowledge of the AI to go look for that information rather than like this vague information. And another technique they call is few shots, right? Few shots, it means you give a lot of examples with answers, guiding it how you want it to answer, and then you ask the question. Then the AI will use that to understand what you really want and where the knowledge is to be able to provide the answer, right? And there's multiple techniques, more than 20 already. One of those techniques, right, was called chain of thought, which helps the AI to reason. Quotes reason, right? Because LLM actually is just calculating what is the next token in a phrase. When you see an LLM answering you, it didn't just figure it out like we do, have the answer and then we answer, right? We conjecture that information and we do it. It didn't do it. It go look at to understand where it is on its knowledge, right? Which is like a huge matrix, right, in there. And then checks which one are closest to that question that you did and to the answer they will give. And then we'll check token by token and see the frequency that those tokens are there for the answer, right? That's why they changed. ChatGPT answers one way, GPT answers another way, because that's random, right? And it's based on the accuracy that is and based on the trained data. And that data, when it's trained, we don't have control of why the AI got that answer, because it made a lot of iteration to find the weight that will see the distance of those words to be able to provide the answer, right? You can tell like, oh, what is the capital of the capital of Brazil is, because you put those questions, it will go to its knowledge and check I see the frequency of those words. Oh, and then you would have a list of maybe Brasilia, Porto Alegre, they will be listed there. But then you see in the knowledge that most of the information there, it says is Brasilia. And then that score there is the highest, and that's why you choose the answer, right? It does that. But there is something that's called weights, right? Which probably you know when they talk about the size of the AI, right? Oh, this is a 20 billion parameter one. Those are the weights. And those weights, we don't have much control of it because of the nature of how it's created. They call it the black box, right? And that's why it hallucinates. We cannot control that because it's the AI who made those calculations in many iterations to try to optimize the answer. So, and hallucination, we cannot really avoid it, we can reduce it, right? But statistically, it's impossible to avoid it, right? By the nature of the model called neural networks, which is most of the models based on.
I think about a couple of months ago, there was a publication by, I think, 2 MIT professors, and they were talking about the impact of AI on our cognitive abilities, our cognitive development. How should we reconcile what we want to think of as the efficiencies of any AI tool versus just completely becoming dumb because we are outsourcing everything to agents or whatever it is? And then secondly, I do remember maybe 15, 20 years ago, there was a book that was written by Stephen Levitt and somebody else, I forget who the other person was. And they were talking about how compromised the data that we currently have is, or the data that was there 15 years ago was. I'm not sure to what extent it's gotten better. But, so how are we having cookies, or how are we building algorithms that do not have bias baked within them to ensure that whatever tools that we create, whatever agentic AI tools that we create, are not reinforcing the same types of biases that previous bias data has reinforced? Thank you.
So for biases, companies are taking steps to have the balanced data and have data of different people, of different nature. So if, suppose, I'll take an example of hiring. So if there are resumes, and if there are more resumes of men than women in tech, AI inherently has a bias of selecting more men in the jobs rather than women. So companies are trying to put guardrails around it and have more balanced data and also have a person accountable. So if there would be a hiring manager who is accountable if their AI is introducing bias. And when companies create models, they try to make sure that the bias is not introduced by having balanced data. So they are working on it. I won't say it is perfect. Still, ChatGPT would have many biases, but they are working on it to make it better. And that's how companies are saying to make AI more safe. And I forgot the other question you had. On the cognitive ability. Yes. So cognitive ability, it is human nature. The more you practice something, the more you kind of know about it. The less you practice, it kind of has an effect. I believe that AI would have some effect on it. I would say even writing, like the way people used to write earlier, that ability is also getting down. But then it depends upon individual to individual how to be better at something.
And Kelvin, you also use AI for human resources, right? So it could be a good, how do you deal with bias, for example?
Dealing with bias, we put guardrails, as BrazilCham mentioned, for cognitive ability. I do, if a friend of mine asks me if he should use AI to start coding, if he want to learn coding from scratch, I wouldn't say so. When you rely on it too much, you don't actually understand the fundamentals of things. AI doesn't think. It's a text completion model. So essentially, when you ask a question, and it's just generating token by token, essentially word by word, it will just keep generating it. It doesn't really think. So the way it's generating things are just based on what has been done in the past. So like you mentioned, like if it keeps training data on top of the generated data from AI, what's going to happen? I think innovation will just die. One of the basic exercise in computer science is sorting, right? So given a list of numbers or an array of numbers, how would you sort it? There are different algorithms out there, and AI knows all the algorithms, but it won't be able to come up with a new one because it doesn't think. So that's why researchers, scientists, computer scientists, computer engineers, they think a lot more, and they will eventually come up with a better algorithm to say on Google Maps, like what's the fastest route to go from point A to point B. But if you ask AI, it will just rely on what invented in the past. So it won't innovate in a way. So one of the things, two things I normally do with AI is I ask it to go and do things that's boring, the way that it has always been done before, right? Then the second one is just vibe with it in a way that, hey, what do you think about this idea? Hey, our system are too slow. How do you think we can improve it? How about we insert this component right here? What do you think? So just having it as a friend to talk about innovation, how to improve things, I think that's another way to improve your cognitive ability. Yeah.
I think that we're trying to eliminate what she was saying is the repetitive work. You know, like you're drafting a brief or a petition. You don't need to do like all that repetitive work anymore. AI can do that for you. You can even like quote some laws, some case studies. That's totally fine. But you have to have the knowledge to make a decision. This is good enough for me to present to the judge.
That's how lawyers learn.
Yeah. Oh,
how did you?
I beg to differ. I'm so sorry. I don't think that's how lawyers don't, like you don't learn how to write by handwriting. Like I don't think even handwriting is necessary anymore. You can type something. It's the same thing. Like you can having the skeleton of a brief is not really necessary. What you need to know is how you structure your thought. You have to ask AI to structure your draft in a certain way, but not draft it for you. Like you can, I don't know. We can talk about that later.
I think that lawyers would now, like if AI just says that this law works and that is not there, but like law firms would have to evolve how to teach their junior lawyers, or like finance firms would have to evolve how to,
I think
teach their...
That's the difficult part, because I don't see, in the firms I've worked, I don't see how they are planning to do it.
Actually, I can add here. I think that's a dilemma and a social question, right? Is that like private companies, if it's you have the mentality of profiteering, right? You'll be replaced, whatever be cheaper, right? So there's no question asked, right? It's also dilemma, and AI, it is evolving, right? Right now, it's at that level. It's just forecasting tokens. If there is a no shift of a model that the AI really can reason, right? That, and I can give an example, like what we're working now, which goes back to the size, right? Our brain uses 20 watts, right? And if you see the neurons, we have about 81 billion. That would be kind of 80 billion parameter model, right? ChatGPT is more than 2 trillion, right? And it's training almost like more than I don't know if you guys know the number for sure, but I know it's almost $1 billion in computer power to do that, right? If a new model comes, it's more efficient and it can reason, right? It will replace even more what is it doing now, right? And the key is even I cannot tell when can that happen, right? Because I got really surprised when the ChatGPT came. It wasn't even ChatGPT. Was to create image, right? I think it was Dolly, and they had won a tournament in Colorado for art. And I thought that would be the last thing that AI would be able to do. It is being creative, getting a lot of art and then put it together and create one, right? And he won the tournament there, right? And you can see a lot of art being done. Soon, probably is going to be doing movies too, right? You just type and stuff, you'll be doing it. So it is improving, right? That fear, I think it's a human fear. It's not just a career, right? And that's really affecting, right? We've never gone, like, they say today we are in the fourth industrial revolution, right? And we're now replacing white collar. People really expertise in it too. It's not just blue collar physical work, right? Now it's mental work. Like she mentioned there, it's more repetitive tasks, that are being into, but it can evolve to not just repetitive tasks, it can evolve to reason. And that will go back to your question again about the AI training itself. It wouldn't work because it cannot reason and get out of the bulk of the data that it already has. So you keep on this loop doing that. But if you learn how to reason, and that's what sets it apart from the AI, we can get very little data with 81 billion, with just 20 watts, and come up with like theory of relativity and many other research, right? So with just this little power that we have in mind compared to AI with much more memory than us, much more processing power, and neurons.
But the thing is, the questions are endless because everyone has a single perspective. You work in different fields, you work in different industries, you have different needs. And every single aspect of AI that we spoke today applies differently for your industry now. So we're going to have more events like this, hands-on for you to adapt for your own necessities, or maybe don't adapt. Like you're saying, you have an experience with Excel, we can do that very, very easily, right? So we're going to have this as a continuation. We do have a lot of questions, so I'm going to open time for networking here, 20 minutes or so, as we have the limit in the time. I would like to thank all the speakers to come today, all of you that came and asked all of these questions. I would like to thank a lot the Chamber for hosting us. If you want to know more about the Chamber, please speak with Fernanda, Mauricio. They can explain about how it works. And we are going to have more. So check the website. We just went live with the invite for next week. Please come, attend more of our events. Reach out to our speakers. You can reach out to me too on LinkedIn, on email. If you want to stay a little network, have some snacks. We're going to take a big picture here in the stage, and let's build the future of AI together, right? Thank you, everyone.